22nd, 2020. We will start the hearing with our typical briefing session, and we will turn the briefing session over to Director John Baza.
Good morning, Chairman Hansen and all the board members. I guess I'd like to first welcome our newest board member, Ms. LaVon Garrison, who was appointed by Governor Herbert and confirmed by the Utah Senate in June. I think the first item of business before we jump into our briefing session is to have a swearing-in ceremony for LaVon. I know she's online, and LaVon, I'll get you to unmute your microphone, and we'll go ahead and handle that oath of office.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be administering that on behalf of Executive Director Steed and the Governor's office.
Okay.
But, we've got some nice documents that we'll send to you that'll have you sign, but for the time being, we'll do this verbal oath of office. And to do that, I'll have you raise your right hand. And if you would repeat after me, I state your name.
I, LaVon Garrison,
Having been appointed by Governor Gary R. Herbert
having been appointed by Governor Gary R. Herbert
and confirmed by the Utah State Senate
and confirmed by the Utah State Senate
as a member of the Board of Oil, Gas, and Mining,
as a member of the Board of Oil, Gas, and Mining,
do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend
do solemnly swear that I will
support, obey, and defend
obey and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
And with that, LaVon, I would welcome you to the Board of Oil, Gas, and Mining.
Virtual handshake.
Shake your hand. There you go. Well,
Thank
thank you very much. And
It's a pleasure to be a part of the board.
I don't know if you wanted to take maybe 2 or 3 minutes just to say hi to the rest of your board members and introduce some of your background.
I've been in oil and gas, of course, my whole life. My resume is very short, as I have stayed. I was with Flying J for 20 years and with the School and Institutional Trust Lands as the Assistant Director for Oil and Gas for almost 20 years. So my resume is very short, but extensive experience in oil and gas. I moved down to Utah about 30 years ago from Billings, Montana, which is where the Flying J office was at the time, and have been here ever since. 2 children, and look forward to serving with the board.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I think you'll find board service to be very fulfilling. There's a lot of policy issues that the board deals with. I welcome all the members of the board to this virtual meeting this month. Our anchor location is in Salt Lake City, and we have a couple of the board members who are in a isolated meeting room in the DNR building this morning. So welcome to all of you. So to begin our briefing session this morning, we put our Environmental Excellence Awards on hold for a period of time. That normally is something we would have dealt with in the May and June timeframe. Holly Brown, our Public Information Officer, went through the process of obtaining nominations earlier this year, and the board reviewed those, and we had 2 presentations that companies were being asked to present on, and we've had a delay in getting those to you and getting those on board. But I think we have the representatives of companies with us this morning to do those presentations, and I'll go ahead and introduce them each one. We have 2 nominations that are being presented this morning. One is for Middle Fork Energy LLC. And this nomination is for the Red Wash Field Office in Uinta County for outstanding results following applications of innovative environmental technology. And I think the presenters we have online from Middle Fork this morning are Production Engineer Manager Carl Bierman and Operations Superintendent Elijah Jackson. Fellows, are you online and unmuted?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Baza, for the introduction.
And I am prepared to either run your slideshow from here, or I can turn that control over to you and have you do that.
You can run it from there. That's fine.
Okay. Let me bring that up then. Give me just a second. It's always a learning experience trying to figure out how to do this. Okay, I think we're there. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
All right. If you'll just go ahead and tell me when to advance the slides, I'll turn the time over to you.
Sure. So as Mr. Baza mentioned, we also have Elijah Jackson, our operations superintendent, on the line. I'll start us off here. So I do want to make one announcement. So Middle Fork Energy Partners has combined with Coda Resources. Middle Fork Energy Uinta LLC is going to continue to be the operating entity in the Uinta Basin. This is a joined company under Coda Holdings. So just to note there, our name has changed. Next slide there, Mr. Baza.
Okay.
Okay, BLM and fugitive emission requirements and best practices. So as Middle Fork / Coda, our fugitive emissions inspections, we feel go above and beyond the federal requirements that we do. So the first bullet point there, obviously staying compliant. We do our mandatory semi-annual optical gas or OG quad-O a inspections for anything drilled on or after September 18th, 2015. We proactively, in 2017, we went to every one of our wells and locations and did a LDAR inspection. And that was, if you guys remember, back in 2017, there was some talk that potentially the BLM was going to make that a requirement to have every location, every well inspected. Once Trump actually got into office, that did not come down as an actual requirement, but we took it upon ourselves to go ahead and get out in front of that in case that did come down, and it's just a good practice. So we did that in 2007. There's close to 1,200 locations we did that on, and then going forward, since doing that big bulk of the work, we're going to put all locations on a 3-year rotation, to where it's going to get a quad-O LDAR, an LDAR inspection, as well as all your quad-O locations that are required. Proactive and voluntary OGI leak detection and repair. So we'll go and pick, for instance, our safety team here earlier this year, we basically picked all of our locations with flares, and we went and did spot checks with our FLIR cameras and LDAR inspections. And then anytime we have foremen or operators that have a suspicion if something's leaking or something doesn't look right, it's always a one call. They call our safety team, and we get the equipment out there and we go do those inspections. LDAR tracking. So this is a sheet. It's kind of hard to read there, but what I want to talk about this sheet, it's what we've created in-house to ensure that we are tracking all of the required quad-O and a requirements. And it allows us to generate reports and get a kind of a stats or a health check of where we're at as far as when we do a lot of these inspections. If we do find something needing a work order created or repairs or anything needed, it initiates that process for our internal operators and mechanics to actually go do all that work and track to ensure that work is done. And then come year end, we can pull everything out of that tracking sheet and show how many different repairs we did, what was our response time on those. And then up in the right-hand corner is just an example of a leaking connection we found in the boiler building through our LDAR camera. And Mr. Baza, if you go to the next slide, we'll see if this video works, and it may not because it looks like, see if you can click play on that.
I think I'm in a PDF screen.
Okay, no worries. So anyways, you can see right in the middle of that picture, you see that this is a picture of our FLIR camera there. I mean, this gas, you cannot see it with your naked eye. So using our FLIR camera detection is just an example of where we found a leaking valve there. Next slide. Reducing ozone emissions. One of the things we do is we work with the local Utah State University branch for ozone monitoring. We provide a location out in the Redwash area. It's called the Horse Pool Monitoring Site. I believe this site's been there over 10 years. Elijah, you may be able to comment. You've been out there longer than that, so you may know how long we've actually had that trailer parked out there on one of our locations where we supply power. What this does is it's helping create our baseline for a lot of our different emissions that they track, especially for the non-attainment piece. I know this site is really looked at during the winter months when the inversion sets in the Uinta Basin to help us better understand how that inversion plays into our emissions with our atmosphere. Ozone cause and effect training. So this is something we do as Middle Fork and will continue as CODA in our monthly safety meetings, where we have all of our operators as well as contractors come. We talk about different areas of how do we minimize our impact on the environment. Some of those are blowing down of wells, pipeline and pressurized vessels, going through our SOPs on how to minimize those and or eliminate. And then also whenever we have big maintenance on different facilities, is doing those in conjunction with any planned shutdowns to help minimize some of that exposure. We also have a big emphasis on the importance of all of our maintenance, the small stuff, looking at all of our tanks, our thief hatches, and all of our equipment to help reduce emissions. A big piece of what we preach here is, we all live and work in the basin and recreate in the basin. So it's important for us to ensure that we are doing our due diligence and our part to ensure that we're working towards zero emissions for the area. And then the bottom right, that's the actual graph of what is tracked. And there's a link on this. I'm assuming the link wouldn't work as well, but you can go on to the Utah Department of Environmental Quality, EPA website, and they have this horse pool location to where you can pull this hourly monitoring and kind of see what your ozones are doing. An example of this is driving into work this morning. I'm actually working in Denver, and on the big signs they say today's a high ozone level here in Denver, so please fuel your car in the evenings. So that's a lot of the stuff that we do as well on our monthly safety meetings, is we'll pull this graph, look at where those high ozones, and just the small stuff. So same thing, trying to fuel all of your fleet trucks in the evening to try to do our part. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Elijah. Mr. Baza, if you want to click to slide 5 for one-touch inspections. Elijah Jackson, our operations superintendent.
All right, folks. You have to excuse me. I can't get my camera to work. So with that, I will take off on the one-touch inspections. In our field, a year to 2 years ago, we decided that we were coming back too many times to locations to do compliance inspections. And in the last few months, we've decided that we were going to roll them all together. So we call them one-touch inspections. And having put that together, we are satisfying the inspections for the EPA, BLM, and OSHA. Within our EPA inspections, it's for the spill prevention, containment, and control. The picture that you see there is one of our inspectors. They're out. They measure our containments and check for adequate size. They inspect the valving, the piping, and the tank integrity. And at the same time, they go through for the BLM requirements and check for site, or they update the site security drawings, the lease signs, the production seals, valve placement, and check for wildlife protective measures, bird cones, and so on. And along with that, just basic housekeeping, checking for trash, rubbish, and weeds. And then for OSHA, we do our annual fixed ladder inspections, our labeling for HAZCOM, and our PPE controls, signs, and warnings. After this inspection is done, they come back to the office and we generate work orders, which are tracked, and they go back out to the field operators or to the correct people to accomplish those tasks, and they're checked off as they're done. So this gives us a great opportunity to handle everything at once and stay in good graces with all of the agencies and try and be good stewards of the land and of our business. Next slide, please. So Carl had alluded to it that we all live here and work here, and our families are here. And last summer we had the opportunity to meet a bunch of our co-parts in the industry, and we got to go through some activities with them. But some of the things that we live by here are, the environmental and social impacts of proactive emissions reductions. We take pride in living here, and we believe that the oil and gas industry is obligated to operate responsibly and provide a safe, reliable product for the public. We try and honor our commitments with any proactive steps that we can take to give our industry the upper hand on being leaders in protecting the environment and the people that live near our working areas. And we do believe that we are stewards of the land, so we try and take care of it. We try and take care of the environment by adding any technology or steps that we can implement to measure our way of doing business and how we can take care of the environment. Next slide, please. So just to touch on a few things that we've done in our facilities, in our production facilities to eliminate emissions and health hazards. In no particular order, but I'll start with the boiler system. We have started installing these boilers, which are high efficiency boilers, 2.6 million BTU boilers. As far as a cost standpoint, they're about 12.5% savings over the equivalent of installing that many line heaters to get that 2.5 million BTU heating factor. If you look at a footprint on the land, this building itself is a much smaller or reduced footprint than the equivalent to how many line heaters we would have to set to get the same heating factors. It's basically a direct fired, kind of like your barbecue, direct fired heater that heats all of our separators at once. So instead of having, if it's a 14 well pad, instead of having 14 individual burners that are heating our glycol system, we have this one burner to heat all of them. What we found is that fuel consumption is much lower on the boiler system than the equivalent to that many line heaters or heaters on the treaters. Virtually, we're burning, like 86% less fuel than what we would be on that many 7J separators. Let's go to the next page. I guess on the boilers, it lowers the NOx emissions because they are high efficiency. On the next page, on the next slide, we start with another one of our pieces of equipment that we have chosen to go with. And on our facilities now, we run compressed air for instrumentation. The facilities are designed to, with the skid that you see on the upper right-hand side of the slide. And it virtually eliminates the use of fuel gas for controls. So that allows us to basically have zero emissions off of any of our controls or automation type of activity. Then at the bottom of the page, you see a snap head or a dump control. We installed roughly 950 of these units throughout our field, taking them from a high continuous bleed snap head to a low or non-bleed miser type of a control, which derated us from the snap head was a emissions rating of 45. It lowered our emissions rating to a 0.27 on roughly 950 units. So that was a program that we went through. One of the benefits that we found was it lowered our fuel consumption on the wells that we are using lease fuel on by about 3 MCF a day. And also on our facilities with compressed air, it also lowered it equivalent to 3 MCF a day of compressed air, making our compressors run less, cleaner. Next slide, please. So if you visit our field, you will see our equipment is inside a large building. And within that building, we have gas detection, H2S detection, and fire eyes. Putting everything in the buildings, we had to go this way and have gas detection, fire eyes, and H2S to derate the building to a class 1 Div 2 area. Leak detection capabilities for fugitive gases. If anything is detected, it will ESD the whole location. It will shut it down, and we will go there and find where the leak is. So response time to any leaks that we have are not only minimized by just simply response time, but our equipment, our system will actually shut the wells in to where that leak is stopped from its source automatically, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's monitored. The added benefit to this that we found is it also protects our people. These pieces of equipment are attached to a strobe light system that can be seen for a long ways out here. It's color coded, so people know not to enter the building, or if it's just a processor error. But the one nice other thing that we have found with this is it takes a very minute amount of emissions or gas, I will say, fugitive gases, to trigger these alarms and shut the facilities down. So we know that our facilities within those buildings on a day-to-day basis are not emitting fugitive gases within those buildings. So all of our equipment, piping, and valving. Next slide, please. And I guess with that, I will turn it over to Carl to cover DNC.
Next slide there, Mr. Baza, please. Last two slides, we're going to go over a little of the drilling and completions piece that we did a missions overview. So first slide here on the drilling rig, we looked at conventional diesel engines, your tier 1, tier 2, all the way up to your tier 4, which would be your highest restricted emissions, tier 1 being your worst as far as the pollutants that come out of it. It's hard to find a lot of tier 4 engines with service companies in the industry right now. Not to say that we won't get there. It's just like the emissions on the cars. I mean, over time, we're slowly getting greater fuel efficiency with better emissions. What we elected to go for as Middle Fork, this would have been last year, 2019 data. We went with a dual fuel system. So it's basically a dual fuel engine on the drilling rig that can run 100% diesel, but then we can supplement that diesel with natural gas. And what we were striving to get was 70% natural gas, 30% diesel. And then over there on the right, you can see the emission factors. So you're looking at grams per BTU of savings. So we threw coal up there just to see how dirty, if you will, coal is as far as burning versus number 2 diesel versus natural gas. Natural gas in this instance is obviously the most clean burning fuel source. You do have to use some diesel for these engines, as the diesel actually lubricates a lot of the equipment. And we actually found too that we were striving for 70-30. If we look back at the actual data, we were actually seeing 50-50. 50% natural gas, 50% diesel is what we saw. Now there's still area of improvement and areas to improve on that. I'm just stating what we actually saw for a real world situation. The third option is what they call a biofuel system. So this would be 100% natural gas. This isn't as proven of a technology. It's harder to find. And what we were leaning towards more on this is either with the drilling rig or the completion crew is actually using electric frac pumps or an electric generator for the rig, that you would have a 100% natural gas engine that is supplying power to that those electric equipment. It was high cost. The reliability wasn't there yet, but it was something that we were looking into and has potential for an emissions reduction piece going forward. Yeah, then the bottom, the Utah high influence emissions. So that's just showing a little bit more on, this was off the clean energy fuel source, natural gas versus diesel, as far as the reduction in emissions. Next slide, Mr. Baza. So then lastly, on the completion side, we went with our tier 2 diesel gensets. That was the most economic option at the time. What we required for our horsepower requirements, we had 3 close to 1,500 horsepower generators. The tier 4, it definitely, we found it. Some companies that offered it. It came with an increased cost due to its limited availability right now in the industry. And what we found was there was less than 10% of drilling rigs in the U.S. are actually equipped with those tier 4 gensets. With the dual fuel generators, these are readily coming more common across the industry. As stated before, we were seeing close to a 50-50 conversion ratio where we were supplementing the diesel. And the cool thing with these, you can retrofit. You can add the equipment to be able to supplement that natural gas on existing equipment. So it's not new equipment that you're building for the application. You're actually retroing existing equipment. So up on the right-hand side, I want to clue you in on some of the actual data that we saw, where we had the tier 2 as well as tier 4 and the dual fuel system. The NOx is the big one there, was being able to supplement upwards of 50%, striving for 70% of diesel. We were seeing almost a 50 to 40% reduction in our NOx just due to burning your natural gas versus your diesel. Okay, bottom slide there, that's showing the actual fuel savings. So at the time, I don't remember exactly what diesel price was, but what we're showing here is this is real data that showed we were actually saving close to $1,800 to $2,000 a day in fuel savings with that 50+% supplement of natural gas. And on a pad drill out where we have 16 wells, that equates to almost a $50,000 per well savings. So it has significant economic benefit to move to this as well. The one thing we did see, you may be asking, why is the data fluctuating up and down so much? You'll have some days we were saving close to $2,500. That's where we're getting upwards of the 60 to 70% natural gas usage. And then over there on January 10th, you actually see zero. We were running 100% diesel. What we found was we had 3 gensets set out there, and they were programmed to supplement the natural gas at 50% load or higher. So unless those generators were being ran at 50% or greater load, it wasn't calling for the supplemental natural gas to supplement diesel. So what we ended up doing was taking off one of those gensets offline and running the 2 gensets at greater than 50% load to ensure that we were maximizing the amount of natural gas that we were burning as a fuel source versus the diesel. Yeah, so with that, that concludes Elijah's and I's presentation for Middle Fork / CODA. We just want to thank the board, Mr. Baza and Mr. Hansen, and Holly as well for setting all this up. I know it's been, as you mentioned, Mr. Baza, we've pushed this to 3 months to finally get to present this. So thank you all for the time.
Thank you very much. The board, do you have any questions while we've got the presenters on the line?
Members of the board, do you have any questions? I thought it was an excellent presentation and appreciate what they've done.
This is Rich Borden. I've got a question and a comment, if I may.
Sure.
Go ahead, Mr. Borden.
I just want to commend you for these initiatives. It's great work, and it seems like it provides a lot of benefits with eliminating waste, improving efficiency, improving local air quality, and reducing emissions of methane, which, as you know, is the most powerful, much more powerful greenhouse gas than CO2. So well done. One quick question: when you're doing the LDAR, the optical imaging for leaks, what sort of instrument are you using? Is that a handheld device? And how complicated is it to use to find these leaks?
It is. It's a handheld device. Elijah, do you want to speak to that one a little bit with what Sandy? I actually haven't been trained on it there, Mr. Borden, but we have Sandy, Scott. We have three or four different members that actually are qualified to run that device. Elijah, do you want to add to that? Looks like his mic is muted. Mr. Borden, so I don't know if that answers your question or not, but we do have some people qualified to actually be able to run that LDAR piece of equipment, the FLIR camera.
Thanks. I'll check into it.
One interesting thing, you can actually use it, the FLIR camera, at your house to be able to see how much leaking, you heat your house. So it's interesting to see how much heat is actually going out of your house around the windows. That is one thing that I have used it with some of our trained guys there that use it out in the field for the emissions piece on the natural gas side. But
that's a great idea. Thank you.
Any other board members have questions or statements? Seeing none, again, thank you for the presentation and very well done. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Baza.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second presentation we have, and I hope I get the pronunciation of this name right. I think it's Caerus Oil and Gas.
Caerus.
Caerus.
It's actually Caerus.
Caerus. Okay. It's formerly the Kerr McGee Oil and Gas Company, and the presenter today this is a nomination for community outreach activities in the Uinta Basin. And the presenter is the Environmental Health and Safety Field Lead, Grizz Oline. So Grizz, I'll turn it over to you. Do you want me to do the presentation or?
I'll present.
Okay.
Okay. Let me know when that's working.
I can see it.
Can you see it now?
No, it looks like we're on a different screen.
Hang on a second here.
Okay. Yes, the slideshow is back.
Did you have it back?
Yes, but now it's gone.
Okay, hang on a second. I apologize for that. I tried to send it over, but it was pretty large. Is the slideshow back on?
Yes, and I see the slide with the tiled windows to the left.
Okay.
Perfect. I think we're good to go.
Basically, we used to be Kerr McGee Oil and Gas, Anadarko, Oxy, but Caerus bought the asset and the sale went through officially on July 31st, or excuse me, July 1st. And so now we're officially Caerus Operating LLC. This asset will be Caerus Uinta LLC is what it'll be called. We chose to, for community outreach for our Excellence Awards this year nomination. What we started out with is we do a lot, try to do a lot in the community. We have a local Uinta Raptor rehab facility. And the facility about 6-7 years ago was the person who was running it and moved away, and it was turned over to new hands. And they needed help moving some of their buildings. And there was 3 pretty good sized buildings that we needed help move. They needed help moving. So we helped, along with huge help from JRH contracting, we were able to move those buildings. It took some wide load things and whatnot like that to get it across town because we moved it up to Dry Fork Canyon. The one building was a little vet clinic. There was a mew, which is basically where you put the birds in so they can rehab in there and perch and things like that. And so it was a real big help to them. So they were able to get back up there. And this serves the whole entire community because they take in raptors from everywhere in the Uinta Basin, Daggett County, any place like that. And not just raptors, but they take ducks, any kind of bird that has a problem or needs help. We also we donated a bunch of avian netting to help them make a flight pen. This flight pen is really important for your raptors because the raptors need to be able to take off and fly and exercise their wings after they've had surgery and things like that to their wings. And this year we were able to, along with Rocky Mountain Power, they ended up donating a bunch of the used power poles and helped stretch some of the netting to get it across there. And this, like I say, it's huge help for the raptors. And this spring they was able to release a golden eagle into there. And it was kind of ironic, the day before this golden eagle had actually got away from them and was hopping around through the trees as it got away from them. And they were able to get it back and put it back in this flight pen. That way they could keep track on it. And the bird can just sit in there. And what they do is they'll bring in animals and stuff for them to eat. And they basically just live in this flight pen until they're strong enough to be released. And then they take them out of there and we'll release them. We've also helped donate with some galvanized stock tanks. This allows diving, mainly your diving waterfowl is what the main thing is, like grebes, ruddy ducks, things like that. This gives them the ability to dive and to swim and to get in that water and to be able to rehab faster. And it's proved very valuable for them up the rehab facility. Roger and Ann Schneiderman are the 2 who run that facility, and they've been great to work with on that. And like I say, they take in a lot of birds and a lot of animals. They've taken in deer and all sorts of things at that rehab facility, but birds are one of their main ones. Some of our employees, we recreate a lot around here, and some of our employees were up in the Docks Beach area, and they noticed a lot of trash that was being dumped up there, and it was a lot of trash. There was tons of it. There was oh, they figured 3 or 4 loads of concrete, a bunch of asphalt, things like that. And they took it upon themselves to go up there and clean this Docks Beach area. And they spent over 120 hours using their own personal equipment. They removed trash, graffiti. There was 3 dump load trailers of trash, concrete, asphalt, couches, tires, barrels, junk, you name it was up there. And they also power washed, as you can see in this video, they power washed all this graffiti off the ledges and rocks up there. And you can see this is the after picture. So the before and then the after. And how they had to do that is they had to drop in some equipment from up above down off there to be able to power wash that off. And they calculated about approximately 200 feet of graffiti that they removed off of there, off of those rocks. And like I say, this was an area that the guys volunteered on their own time. They found it. And this whole award we're presenting on, it really doesn't matter who the name is on the company, on the office building. The people are the ones who really put this one together. These guys, these are all things that the guys saw around the community and things that they felt needed help and done that. And so they all took the initiative to do this on their own. Another big one was the National Public Lands Day. For the last 3 years, we've started to notice some weeds, noxious weeds, mainly black henbane is a big one that we've seen it around Seep Ridge Road and in the Monument Ridge Road area. And BLM and came to us with our my other counterpart, Kerr McGee, and we decided we wanted to pull weeds and chop those and bag them so that they wouldn't spread the weeds. And I don't know if anybody knows black henbane, but one seed pod can hold like, I can't remember how many, it's like 10,000 seeds. So it can spread really rapidly in one seed pod. And so basically what we did is we would go out there and we would chop it along the road and we would put it in these bags and then we'd haul it to the trash. And we did about 4 miles along Seep Ridge Road and Monument Ridge Roads combined. That's just kind of where we've started. This is a project we're going to continue on, kind of spread along. And we've actually seen where some good benefits on it, where the black henbane's not coming back in those areas. We've also sprayed for thistle and any other noxious weeds that we see along the way, like hound's tongue, things like that. And most of the guys that were out there on this project are guys who recreate in that area. They spend a lot of time out there hunting, just being out there, and they sure enjoyed getting out there and be able to give back to it. One of the other things we're really proud on, we did a lot of, is for the last 5 years, we volunteered for the Special Olympics. This is kind of something we all took our turns helping out with, and we volunteered for every project, every event that they did, from the track and field to the Boise Ball to the swimming events, where we'd go and we'd time them and do that. But in reality, the Special Olympics, what you're really there for is you're there for the athletes and for the smiles on their faces and to see them compete and see them and do all that. And so that's really the reward you get out of that one, is for all those smiling faces. I wanted to thank the board for allowing us the opportunity to present today on this, and to be able to even give back to do all this, since it's been postponed and everything. I want to thank Holly for doing all this as well too, making sure getting it all getting us all figured out on this. So I guess with that, that ends my presentation. Does you have any questions?
Thank you. I do not have any questions, but I certainly can ask the board board members if they have any questions they would like to ask on this very, I think, very good project and presentation. I do not see any. The board would like to go into deliberations to discuss these presentations and the awards, if that's okay with you.
Yes, Mr. Hanson, we have one more presentation we'd like to make. So,
I'm sorry.
No, not in terms of the Environmental Excellence Awards, but this is on the briefing. So
Yes, okay.
If you'll give us time after your deliberation to finish our briefing, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, we'll try to be as quick as possible so that we can complete your briefing session. Board members, Julianne sent out a link in an email this morning at 7:31 that you can access the virtual boardroom if you want to check your emails, and I believe go to that particular link. We can go into deliberations. Any board members, any problem with that? Changing your link? Why don't we do that now then? So if you'll exit the link you're in now and join in on the other. Mr. Baza, we're done. I'm sorry, the board is done with their deliberations on these matters, and we have voted unanimously to award both of these companies an Environmental Excellence Award based on their performance in reducing their environmental footprint and, frankly, improving the environment in which they work and live. So we're very happy to tell you that the board believes these are both companies are deserving of this award.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. The division will follow up with both of those companies and make sure that we get them the appropriate documentation for their awards.
Thank you. We'll turn the briefing time back over to you.
Mr. Hanson, based on the time element and the schedule of the board's remaining agenda, I think the division would like to offer up that we'll postpone our briefing on the disposal facilities either to the end of the day or even to next month's board hearing at your preference. But in either case, we'll go ahead and close our briefing at this point and turn the time back to you. But please let us know if you want to have that briefing at the end of the day.
Thank you. We'll discuss it at some point as a board, and we apologize for taking so much of your time to discuss the items we did during deliberation. And like I said, we'll let you know before the end of this hearing whether we'd like to hear the rest of the briefing on disposal facilities or wait until next month.
Thank you.
I assume that you want to maybe discuss at the end of the hearing the agenda and the division calendar, or are we going to go ahead and forego that discussion as well?
We may just go that. I mean, the calendar is part of the board briefing book, so we can just forego that. The only thing we really wanted to cover that was remaining was the briefing on disposal facilities.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize. Before we close the briefing session, I need to ask Ms. Julianne Carter if there are any comments that were submitted from the public that needs to be heard at this time.
Mr. Chairman, there were no comments submitted.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll close the briefing session, and I would suspect that we're going to need to take a few minutes of time to prepare for the actual hearing to get started. Should we 5 or 10 minutes? 5 minutes? Paul's giving me the high sign of 5 minutes, so we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll start the formal hearing at that time. That would be, why don't we just make it a round number and say at 10:30 we'll start the formal hearing session. So we'll take a break.